Were you surprised by how the Atlanta race played out?
Yes, I was pleasantly shocked. I saw some people saying this could be the greatest race of the next gen era. I think Adam might have even said that in the chat earlier. I think he said Gen 3. I'm sure he meant the Gen 7 car. But, regardless, this was fantastic. This was a great race, a great finish. I still hate that it came at the expense of what we had with the old Atlanta Motor Speedway. I still am opposed to the principle of trying to convert a mile and a half into a mini super speedway here. But I can't hate on this. I mean, I have to give credit where it was due. This was one of the greatest finishes, at least in recent NASCAR memory, in the history of this sport here. Maybe you could say of all time. I mean, people might bring up the 76 or 79 Daytona 500, but those ended up with a couple of cars junked in the infield, each of them. This was clean all the way to the end there. This was absolutely fantastic. Now, I think two things can be true at the same time. We can acknowledge that this was a great race and a great finish. We also don't need to have a knee-jerk reaction of saying, let's tear down Texas because everybody hates that track and turn that into Atlanta 2.0. Let's think about tearing down a couple of other mile and a halves next time the surface stage is out and we need to reconfigure them. Let's take this formula and try to replicate it everywhere else. Because if we try to rig the system so that we get this kind of racing and this kind of finish every weekend, we really don't get those kinds of finishes at any weekend because they're not as special as they feel when they happen in the rare instances like they happen today. This was absolutely incredible, though. Take nothing away from that. I'm pleasantly surprised, especially based on how, to a lesser extent, the truck and certainly the Xfinity races yesterday played out. And again, more on that on the Encore show tomorrow. After the Xfinity race, I was so down on what to expect today. I just expected it to be another complete dud with a one groove single file train all day and not a lot of passing, not a lot of action. And a byproduct of an aging surface, maybe not aging as well as we had hoped. But for the Cup Series, I got to tell you, normally I just feel like they should have taken the Xfinity car and made that the Gen 7 car because they have a really great package. In the case of Atlanta Motor Speedway, they had the dud this week. The Cup Series brought an absolutely amazing package and it put on an amazing race with, like I said, arguably, maybe we'll talk about a couple of examples that might rival it here in a second, but arguably the greatest finish in the history of the Cup Series in recent memory. This was absolutely fantastic.
A fantastic finish, and I was surprised with how the race played out because when we had that second lap big one, I was thinking, oh, this could be one of those races where we're going to have caution after caution after caution. The drivers are driving without using their heads, making moves where we're just wondering what are we doing. But that wasn't the case. The crashes we saw, cars were loose. Handling was an issue. We talked about that with the old Daytona 500, Daytona back in the day where handling was a big issue. It was nice to see that. I would have liked to see a little bit more tire wear become an issue. I think that could have really made things spicy, especially if you had a group of drivers taking care of their tires and gaining later on the race. Be interested to see how that happens. And then the way the race changed from early in the day where we had more sun to the cooler, cloudy conditions. The drivers got aggressive and they overall raced each other with respect, which I think a lot of people are always talking about. We had really just that one crash where it was a driver essentially forcing the issue a little too early. I think, honestly, if Chase Briscoe had stayed in that outside line, just pushing it, he could have put himself in a much better spot. It's one of those deals where, as you mentioned, Ben, I think this was a great product, and I 100% agree with you. As much as we agree Texas could use some work, don't make Texas the next Atlanta 2.0 because this race, I think, it's really helping Atlanta Motor Speedway. We're seeing more fans in attendance. It's still not the same old Atlanta that the drivers love, but at the end, the fans are coming out. And once again, as you mentioned, one of the best finishes I think a lot of people are talking about for quite some time in Atlanta. The old configuration, of course, you had Dale Earnhardt, Bobby Labonte in 2000 by inches. A year later, Kevin Harvick holding off Jeff Gordon in 2001. Jimmy Johnson just getting also close to a win, but Carl Edwards getting his first one by inches over Jimmy Johnson, all very similar fashion. And now that three-wide finish between Daniel Suarez, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch. But we got to talk about some of the other tracks that have really close finishes, especially Talladega. They have a lot of them. 2011 when Jimmy Johnson just beat Clint Boyer by inches. Darlington 2003, Ricky Craven just by inches, beating and banging with Kurt Busch to the finish line in the spring race when it was still the 400-mile race. And then, of course, Daytona, the Pepsi 400 in 2007, McMurray by inches over Kyle Busch. I have to ask, when it comes to all these close finishes, where does the finish rank today amongst the other close finishes in NASCAR?
I mean, Joe, it's up there. I mean, I think I saw a tweet from someone right before we came on the air. You know, maybe the top three would be in any order: 2011 Spring Talladega, Darlington, 2003 with Craven and Busch, and then you throw this race in there and put any of the three in any order you like, and you can make a case for any combination of those. But you know, the three closest finishes, the three greatest finishes, I think that might be what we have here. This is certainly up there with those. And it was even, I would say, probably better than 2011 Spring Talladega, because I still remember, I guess, being 11, almost 12 years old at the time, watching that finish. I still hate that Dave Blaney got spun at the end and was up there leading all those laps of that Tommy Baldwin car. I kind of wish that we could go back and rerun the finish of that race with him being up there in the mix, because that was a great run for him that day. But that doesn't take anything away from the finish that we got being so memorable with, you know, the Hendrick teammates up there and the RCR guys, Harvick pushing Boyer and Mark Martin getting disconnected from Jeff Gordon there at the end, which cost him as Dale Jr. was pushing Jimmy Johnson to the finish. And then you had, I think, Carl Edwards and Greg Biffle making it 4 wide there at the very end and maybe getting past Martin. I mean, you had 8 cars all under a blanket there at the end of that one. And I thought that we were going to see a spread between the top 3 like we saw today. Again, like I mentioned, Martin and Gordon getting disconnected cost them quite a bit of ground there coming to the line in that finish. But we got that 3 wide finish today. I mean, this was absolutely sensational. And you could tell coming off of 4 that it was going to end like this. This was, like I said, you know, I feel like a broken record repeating myself here, but you can't say it enough. This was absolutely amazing, incredible, fantastic. Throw every superlative out there you want. Stop me whenever you like. I think this is a finish that we're going to be talking about for a long, long time, and it's a finish that NASCAR really needed here at the start of their season to help keep fans invested following, obviously, their biggest race of the year, the Daytona 500. I think the fans that tuned in for week 2 here, they certainly got a treat today.